Hello, what do you think? Seductive. That's nice.
It's really good.
Hi, I'm Nuala O'Sullivan and I'm the founder and director of the Women Over 50 Film Festival, and I am absolutely delighted to welcome you to this Q&A with some of our filmmakers in WOFFF20.
Hello, I'm Natalie. I'm producing today and I'm honored of WOFF.
Hello, I'm Bianca and I am the director of Don't Shoot the Messenger.
Hi there, I'm Julie Carter and I'm the writer and co-producer and director of I Am a Fellrunner.
Hi, I'm Phoebe and I'm the director of the film Senescence.
Hi, I am Barbara Asare-Bediako and I am the director, co-writer, and co-producer of Ballet After Dark.
Hi, I'm Sinead. I'm the director of the short film Stray.
Hello, I'm Marie Mullen and I was acting in the short film Stray in Ireland.
And I'm Cecelia Condit and I wrote and directed the film I've Been Afraid.
I'm Elspeth Parsons. I'm the director of The Woman Who Planted Trees.
Fantastic. It's so nice to see you all. We've got a couple of questions that all our filmmakers are going to answer, and we're going to answer them in that order that we just introduced ourselves to you in, and that's the order that the films have been curated in Programme 1. And Programme 1 is called Roar, films to make you scream and shout, shorts to galvanize you into action. So the very first question I'd like to put out there for you is, just tell us what inspired you to make these incredible films at this time now?
Hi. Well, for me, I was taking an experimental film class at Ohio University, and this was my second semester project. And I had been watching a lot of YouTube videos, and I was trying to get inspiration. And I saw a lot of videos about people just sort of bursting water balloons in slow motion. And I thought that was cool, but I didn't exactly want to do water balloons. So I thought, what would it look like to burst balloons with a lot of different elements in them? So that's sort of how I came up with the idea of that. And then later on, when I was editing, my professor suggested to sort of put the editing to a rhythm. So I found this sort of sound effect of gunshots, and I thought that was pretty cool. So I edited the water balloons, the balloons bursting, me pricking the balloons to the sounds of gunshots. And so I thought that was kind of cool with the juxtaposition, sort of the happy balloons bursting. It's sort of a happy thing, but sort of hearing the balloons bursting isn't a great sound on one's ears, to sort of an even more heightened sound of gunshots. So that's sort of how I came up with Don't Shoot the Messenger.
So for myself, in our film I Am a Fellrunner, it very much came from my passion for the sport of fell running, which is running up and down mountains, often racing at quite high speed. So you really develop an incredible relationship with the place, with the mountains that you're running over, on a kind of macro level and also a micro level, like every footstep, every placement and the way you use your body. I also write poetry, so I wrote this poem, I Am a Fellrunner, and I always feel with a lot of poems that they're better said than they're better heard than read on a page. And luckily I always had the idea that this I Am a Fellrunner piece that I'd written as a poem I wanted to represent it visually as well, but I'd have no experience whatsoever in photography or filmmaking. But I met a filmmaker who was in my climbing group, rock climbing group, Jessie Leong, and I was talking with her, and she said, "Oh, you want to make a film?" And I said, "Yeah, I think I want to make a film." So we made a film.
So my film Senescence, so it was my grad film at uni, and this film really came about from sort of conversations with my family members. So like my aunts, my mum, my nan, like they're all older, and in the kitchen whilst we're making stuff, having a tea and a chat, they'd all be there just talking about, you know, hip operations in their bones. And it was just really, I don't know, it kind of came from that experience. And obviously I'm not at that point yet, but it really interested me, you know, this kind of particularly menopause, because obviously it's something that, you know, women go through, and just, I don't know, just sort of learning about it, and just kind of, I guess, wondering what's going to happen as I get older, and just sort of that mix of fascination of the sort of beauty and the patterns of the body and the way it looks, but then also kind of contrasting it with the fact that it is getting old, I suppose. And that's kind of, yeah, it was that contrast between essentially the decaying body, but then the beauty of it as well, that kind of really, it made this film, I suppose.
My film is Ballet After Dark. It is a short documentary, cinema verite, has some animation. What motivates me for documentary in general, I'm also an anthropologist by training and study and field work. So I'm always interested in the human condition and interested in the environments and these fundamental questions. So one of the questions I've been interested in for a while as an African-American woman is images of Black women's bodies. And so, you know, I started getting interested in this. I had applied for and got the Soul Zans Innovation Fund. And, you know, at first it was just this look at how Black women's bodies are many times being replicated, or maybe throughout history as well, and how do Black women see themselves? And then they really forced me to turn it around and say, well, rather than just do a bunch of interviews, why don't you find a character, somebody who would embody? And so what I found for myself is that I was more interested not in the denigration of women's bodies, but more interested in finding someone who kind of challenged all of this. And so what better way than to find a Black ballerina, because this has typically been a field where, for many reasons, but mainly I think too, Black women haven't embodied this, but there's some women who really challenge it. So that's how I became interested in my character Tide. The other thing that motivates me as an anthropologist is cinema verite. So shooting the film, you think you know the story, but then it's really a matter of how this person's life opens up. And Tide is a very interesting person as a character. She is what I would call a flawed hero. So she succeeds, but you know, you're always sitting back wondering, like, you know, she's not in a professional dance company, you know, she's not a well-known dancer, but how does she do this? So that was pretty much it. That's what took us through the process.
Yeah, so Stray is my second short film, and my first short film had kind of been a story that I'd written myself about contemporary rural Ireland, because I'm from a rural place in Ireland, and Ireland has gone through an awful lot of change in recent years, and I felt there was an awful lot of stories, like new stories that kind of hadn't been shared. So I was on the festival circuit with Homecoming, and I met the writer Gemma Dorley, and she saw Homecoming, she really liked it, and about a year later, so it was in 2018, there was a first feature film fund by the Irish State funders, Screen Ireland, and it was to encourage, it's a fantastic scheme to encourage more women filmmakers, so it was open to women to make the first feature. So Gemma came to me with an idea she had, got shortlisted, but unfortunately we didn't make the final 6, but we didn't want to be discouraged, so we were like, okay, well, like, let's make a short film. And it was very important to us that the short stood as a standalone story, so we went into a development period with that. So we focused on one character, the main character, Una, at a very particular point in the narrative, and we pulled that into a short film, and Gemma wrote it, and we were successful in getting some local county arts funding from my county Wicklow, which was brilliant. But the big thing for us was to see if we could get Marie Mullen on board, because she was our dream. I'm not just saying it because she's here, but Marie's a legend.
I send the money in.
Yeah, but I studied in Galway, and Marie's a founding member of Druid. You have a fantastic theatre company here, and I've had the privilege of seeing her on stage over the years. And when Gemma was writing it, like, Marie was our goal. You know, we were like, if we can get Marie attached to the short, it'd just be fantastic. Just all around, you know, to work with her, to see her in that role. So it was fantastic to get her on board, and we shot it in May 2019, and it's been on the festival circuit since October. Obviously a little bit interrupted at the moment, but we're delighted with it. And yeah, so thanks so much for having us.
Thank you, Sinead, for all those lovely things. But what struck me was the script was truly a beautiful script. It was very sparse. It was very true, and I loved the way it gave older women their mindset, that these older women are perfectly capable of having thoughts and dreams and hopes, and be articulate about their lives. And I just thought that the character that Sinead and her friend wrote and set down on that short was beautiful and really alive, and it really attracted me to it. And she was a country woman, but she had her own way of doing things. She also had a huge amount of dignity. There was nothing wrong with her mind, and she went through a trauma, and as a really strong person she dealt with that trauma, and that is all. You can see all that in the little film. It's just heartwarming and very positive.
Hi, I'm Cecelia Condit, and I started sketching for I've Been Afraid by interviewing women that have been abused or in abusive relationships. And I found that the more I interviewed them, there was just so many overlaps of abuse, the same business of being isolated, number one, silence, number two, and then you get erased, and then you get the sense of dread and fear. And I started getting under this huge amount of information that felt encyclopedic for me. So I was in Mexico staying with a friend for a month, and I started playing with Instagram emojis that, and I started writing a song that became the structure for this piece. And I wanted to make a dictionary of all the things that women go through, whether they're young or whether they're old, that are things that one doesn't know the language for, one isn't prepared for, and one finds oneself in a relationship and you wonder, how in the world did I get there? And so this piece sort of starts out with how one gets there and how one stays in a situation like that. And so this piece is 6 minutes, but I packed it with stories of people that I interviewed, like terrifying things, like a husband who would say, tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. And she didn't know what he would do, but he would count down for days until he did it. So like the terror, that was part of what I wanted to express. And I used a little emoji of me that looked like a child and talked about from birth my own experience with abuse. And I went straight on through to today.
Hey, so The Woman Who Planted Trees, just briefly, it's an observational cinematic documentary portrait of someone called Rachel, who's a bit of a force of nature. And she's been planting trees across Scotland for over 35 years. So she's planted over 9 million trees, and she's on a mission to get rid of pesticides from the forestry industry as well. So this film kind of follows, it dives into her world. And what inspired me to make it as a film was, I suppose, coming from a reflection on this collective pickle that we're all in. And as a filmmaker, I want to tell urgent and beautiful stories that really give us role models who can help us navigate these enormous challenges that we're facing collectively. So for me, Rachel's qualities make her a really powerful role model. I think particularly her sense of responsibility and truth and action that make her leap up in the morning. and get on with it. So yeah, I think I wanted to leave the audiences with the questions that were first posed to me by Mary Oliver, the poet, who's another wonderful woman over the age of 50, who sadly died last year. But the question is, tell me, what is it that you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? So yeah, I kind of, through Rachel, wanted people to reflect on that question and hopefully come up with some action and responsibility. I think also relevant for this festival is this sense of kind of post-reproductive power that Rachel has. That she said has this line in the film where she's like, "You only have so long between your children leaving home and being old and fucked, so you got to make the most of it." that spirit of like, come on, of urgency and clarity, which I find really inspiring and want to kind of share with the world.
Yes, and I'm an absolute mantra for WOFF, absolutely. Yeah. In a programme called Roar, films to make you scream and shout, shorts to galvanise you into action. How are you galvanised by this film? How has it affected you in your world? In this COVID time, does the film mean something different now? Is urgency more important for you now? So it's a chance to speak to, what does Roar mean to you?
I can't really say that it's changed my worldview. I think it's made me sort of look at, not be afraid to sort of take a weird or a non-traditional look at film, in which I did, especially like in the COVID times, because I don't know about everybody else, but for my film, it was a film, I just set up a camera and did it myself. So it's something that I could possibly do during these times. But I did just like sort of the, like I said, sort of the juxtaposition from these beautiful things coming out of this balloon, where you sort of think of childhood, but then it's contradicted by these gunshots that it's paired with, and that's sort of the childhood that I come from, and sort of hearing the gunshots at a regular basis, and then during parties, no matter what, during good times and during bad times. So I think that's sort of how it's paired with my worldview, but it's not actually alter it, but I guess it's enhanced it, sort of finding the beauty in the bad things and things that are normally considered ugly or sort of harsh on the ears, as these gunshots do in my film.
So for me, I think the film changed me in the respect of making the film change me, because I'm even though I suppose in my sport of running up and down mountains as fast as possible, I won my age group in the British Championships like when I was in my early 50s. So you would think I would be confident, but I'm not confident because I have a sort of non-standard body, if you like. I have a spine that grew bent ever since I was a kid, and that's been a massive issue through my life. Like basically coping with all the physical problems that's given me, but also the kind of self-consciousness about being a weird shape. And so, you know, it was a big deal for me to be the center of attention in a film, and to have my film running like that. And so now I just a lot more comfortable, I guess, in my own skin as a result of doing it. And yeah, that's kind of unexpected. And listen, I've written more about that too. And also, it's amazing that you know, Elspeth mentions about Mary Oliver and her poem "The Summer Day." Mary Oliver's one of my favourite poets and inspires me greatly. But at the end of the Summer Day poem, when she asks, "What is it you want to do with this one wild and precious life?" When Mary Oliver died, I think it was last not this January, but January before, I ran up a mountain near my house and I sat on the top of it and I wrote a poem in response to her question. And I feel that that poem, which was my response to Mary Oliver, ought to be my next film. So I'm really kind of thinking this is really good, and I really want to do another one. And that's the other thing. Yeah, my response to that would, the poem I wrote around that would definitely be what I want to make a film about next.
I guess my films just kind of made me appreciate how intricate the body is a bit more, but then also how much can go wrong. And particularly when, because I had to search through a lot of sort of science and medical information to try and get what I needed for my film, and just sort of how linked sort of bone problems can be with a woman, and with, you know, just sort of periods and that kind of stuff. And that was, I don't know, it just shone a new light on that particular side of the body, I suppose. And yeah, and then with COVID, so I started my film before, and then pretty much all of production fell during quarantine. So it was kind of nice because it meant that I just only had to focus on my film, but then it was always in the back of my mind that you know, there's a global pandemic and I'm making a film about decaying bodies. So that was ticking in the back of my mind. But
so just to put it out there, I mean, this film, I'm in this film festival because I'm actually 50 at 52, sorry, right? Life is so good in 50s. And so saying all this to say, this is a story about a millennial age woman, African-American in Baltimore, everything's so specific, you know, and she's a classically trained ballerina, kind of struggling. And then she has this sexual assault, very violent assault, and this rocks her world. And so she's taking this, her mission is to really take all of this trauma against her body, and she used that to heal herself. And so for me, you know, Tide is like a double whammy, because really the world of ballet, like, you have no idea how hard it is. There's so many scars that get formed. It's almost like a military training. And so, and then to be an African-American woman and your body's just not right. I remember asking her, I said, well, you know, what is it really like? What makes Misty get the job or somebody else gets the job? And she said, you know, you have no idea. Sometimes the tutu or the leotard costs tens of thousands of dollars. It's Givenchy, and I will never have those hits. I will never have that body. So, you know, the first layer really is that, to me, is amazing, is you're already going against that, and which to me is a trauma against your body, even though you're trying to make it. Maybe modeling is kind of like that too. You're trying to fit yourself into this box, and you'll never fit, but you'll never give up. And then to have the assault. And so what she really does as we follow her, she takes all of this with her photography, and she lifts herself up, and that's her mission, to lift everyone else up. And then the other fascinating thing is that how is she able to do this? And it's really social media. And for me, you know, being a Gen X person, I think that is so interesting. There's so many complexities about the world. One of the most heart-wrenching and heart-tugging things was the last interview we did with her, the second one. And she just makes this commentary about, because she doesn't really feel that she has the support of her family. And so she said, you know, I always thought I would always wanted more followers. But now I wish some of those, you know, followers and supporters could be my actual family. So really, you know, exploring this world where it's possible. You have all of these, you know, in media, people who are just popping out through social media. But then once you get into that world, what is it like to be in that world? It's not a tangible world, but it's a world where Tide feels love. That was pretty much it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I mean, making the film was great. I mean, especially because with COVID, it just made you appreciate the opportunity to do it. You know, like you put so much work into, like so much work into getting like 3 days of a shoot, and I'm really glad that I enjoyed it as much as I did, because little did I know it could possibly be a very long time before we're on set again. So for me personally, I kind of just am really glad that we got it in the bag, and that we have that now to share with people during this strange time.
I mean, what excites me about this is these are a crowd of young people, Sinead and Emma and all the people that were involved in filming this, who have a very honest understanding of older people, not just older people, younger people as well, but as Barbara said earlier, the inner world of characters. And it comes from a truth, and it comes from a need to be truthful, and it comes from basics. And this is what we're doing when whether we're on stage or whether we're doing film. If we have that kind of honesty, then people will listen, people will hear us, people will respond. And we need film and we need theatre in our lives, we need the art in our lives, but also if we can trust that even these young people, that they have an inherent honesty about them, that they have an inherent human understanding when they're presenting characters to us. We can trust them, we can feel secure. And I mean, for instance, a beautiful, delicate way of dealing with grief in this short that we did. And I'm so looking forward to the feature, because I think it's in good hands. And but just dealing with something as delicate as grief has been so mature, has been so not with any extra padding, has been just honest, I suppose is the word I'm using. And it excites me that there are young people like this who understand the human condition so well, and also understand how our particular culture, the Irish culture, is moving into a modern world. How even the rural communities, they've all belonged to, like Sinead and myself and a lot of my colleagues, that we're growing out of them, but we're not losing them, but we're making them grow into something that is more modern, and is something that is to be proud of still, while we're keeping our old traditions and our old way of doing things. And I think that's very encouraging going forward. And especially with COVID now, we've all been sort of, all the dross has been taken away, and we've gone back down to the simples of looking as what do we want, what makes us happy. And somehow it is spending loads of money on nonsense. It's something that makes us peaceful and loving and fulfilled inside.
In finishing this film, I've been trying to figure out who this very white woman, me, could in some ways add anything to the dialogue that's going on in the Black community. So that's been a change. I have a connection to the land where I live in Wisconsin. I experience the violence very personally. I have made a commitment to listening, even though I was in a fog, and still am a little. And I don't know quite where to go in terms of addressing this moment, but I think that artists have to, and I think any organization that can has a responsibility to take a stand. And I don't know how to do that. I just know that I'm trying.
There was a contagiousness to Rachel's sense of urgency, and also anger and clarity, and how she asks, what's actually important. And I think that's something I've reflected on a lot since. But also how she's chewed over these different expectations around womanhood, and weighing up whether to be a full-time granny singing "The Wheels on the Bus Go Round and Round" all day, or taking on this kind of bigger mantle of healing the planet and healing herself as well through that. So yeah, I think the story kind of drew together a lot of these interconnected themes that I'm drawn to, sort of environmentalism and activism and questions of responsibility and truth and power, but also questions of womanhood and motherhood, and how that connects with things like work and missions beyond the home. But maybe I was also too inspired by Rachel's workaholism, and I just want to make more films that find more role models to lead us through these times. Yeah, and focusing in on these sort of human environmental relationships, and really paying attention to nature. But in terms of COVID, Rachel, the show just goes on. I mean, she's still up on the hill. I'm not sure very much has changed for her, but there's a kind of stoicness to that even a global pandemic can get in the way of her getting trees in the ground. So that there's something inspiring about that as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and actually all of us could take something from all the films we've seen. It's about a kind of going on with the work and planting the next tree and doing the next thing. It has been absolutely fantastic to see you all and hear more about your films. Thank you so much for joining us. For our audience, if you have enjoyed these films in Programme 1, there are in total 58 short, amazing, international, independent, fabulous films for you to enjoy. And if you've liked this Q&A, we've got 8 of them in total, and we've got filmmakers from all over the world. The really fantastic insight into our filmmakers and the work that they're doing. So please do take advantage of all the work that's online from the 26th to the 30th of September. You can see all the films, all the Q&As, and we do hope that you'll go onto the WOFF website and access the films there. We always have an annual lecture, and this year we've got a virtual lecture from Dr. Francesca Sobandi, and I do hope that you'll click on and have a look at that on the website too. The lecture and the Q&As are all free of charge, so no matter what you've got in your pocket, you'll be able to join in. Don't forget to vote in the Audience Choice Award, and maybe one of these films today will be taking home the Emerald Life WOFF Audience Choice Award. So you'll see the link on the website, so be sure to vote for your favourite film. Huge thanks to all our filmmakers today for sharing their time and their thoughts and their art with us so generously. Thank you and goodbye, and hope to see you again sometime soon. Bye now, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.